Welcome everyone, tonight we are taking a look at the FDick Titan honing steel. This is an interesting steel, very different than what I typically use. And it works quite differently than you might expect. With a typical honing steel, you've got deep grooves cut in there. As you swipe your knife across, those grooves help straighten out that edge, removing as little material as possible. This steel, just looking at it, you can tell it's not quite the same. The grooves are much shallower, and you've got this powdery, rather coarse coating on top. It's interesting as I run my hand along the honing surface. It doesn't feel perfectly smooth like with most steels, but rather I feel a little bit of abrasive resistance. And I'm going to talk more about how it works in a little bit. First, I'm going to go over the measurements. Second, I'm going to do a demo. And then third, I'm going to go into the details. So let's begin with our measurements. The overall length of the steel comes in at 17 1/4 inch, and the overall length of the honing surface comes in at 11 5/8 of an inch. The steel has a loop you can use for storage. It's got a nice comfortable plastic handle, and it's made in Germany. Moving on to our demo. This steel you use just like any other honing steel. You take your knife, making sure you have a perfect 15-degree angle with the surface, and you run it across. And just alternate back and forth. And it feels so different than a normal steel. I can feel like all these little grains scraping up against the edge. And now let me show you something. I realize you might not be able to see this on camera, depending on the lighting, but even with the few swipes we did, we have metal shaving that actually came off the edge. Moving on to functionality. So the first aspect I want to talk about. This grainy surface that this steel has. It's almost like a cross between a ceramic rod and a very coarse steel. It removes metal from the edge of your knife. The result in practice, you end up with an edge that has a lot of micro serrations. It's like a bunch of little teeth. That'll help your knife grip into foods like tomatoes when you're slicing. However, it'll also make your blade wear out a lot faster, so you'll need to hone it over and over more frequently. One thing I like to do when I use this steel, follow it up with a fine steel afterwards. Take your knife and then do a couple passes on a fine cut steel just to smooth out that edge and reduce those micro serrations. That'll help you keep your edge a lot longer. The honing surface has a pretty good length to it at 11 5/8 of an inch. It's suitable for knives up to about 10 inches, after which you'll want something a little longer. The handle feels comfortable. The steel itself feels very sturdy. It's got a nice weight to it. I've only had this steel a short time, and I don't see any signs of wear. I expect it will last a long time, but the one thing I would caution on, since this is a coating on top, any sharp drops or strikes against concrete could damage it very easily, so handle it with care. And finally, from a fit and finish perspective, no dents, no scratches. The most important part of a steel, obviously, is your surface, and the surface is perfectly uniform. It's very important whenever you get a steel to check for any imperfections, and this one is just right to sum things up. Excellent steel. It works very well when your knife has gone a little too dull for your regular steel. This will help bring that edge back. Remember, to get the most out of the edge retention though, follow it up with a fine steel to smooth out those micro serrations. I hope this video was helpful. If you have any questions, comments, drop a note below in the comment section. And if you want to get updates on when the next videos are available, please subscribe.